Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, hi, this is Attican, and welcome to a new series I'm going to do to kind of wrap up my thoughts and share with you the fundamentals of playing Railway Empire. The Gold Edition is out now. That means that really the game is complete. There's no more planned DLC for this, no more expansions, no more changes of functionality. The game is complete. I think it is an absolutely brilliant, wonderful game. It's one of the best games I've ever played. And I think you're going to enjoy it too if you're new to the game. So what I'm going to do here is set up a set of reference guides where I'm going to quickly cover succinctly, which is not easy for me. Some of you will know it's not easy for me to be succinct. See, it just took me a minute to tell you I can't be succinct. But I'm going to cover the basics that you need to know to play this game reasonably well. And then we'll get into more advanced stuff as we go along. I'm also going to refer you to some of the many videos I've already made on Railway Empire and give you links to those to give you other things you can look at. So first thing is we're going to start out with platforms, track, signals, supply depots, and basic trains and blocks. That's that. We're going to cover the basics of railroad, the railway part of Railway Empire. But I want to caution you that Railway Empire, don't be fooled by that name. This is a tycoon game. This is a puzzle game. If you play it at a high level and try to do well on the scenarios, you are solving very difficult puzzles and you are playing very difficult and challenging scenarios. It just so happens we're using trains to get the job done. All right, so first thing first, what some basic nomenclature. This is your home city. So where every map you start on, there's one city that's your headquarters. You have to start your empire from that city. So we're in Toledo. That's our home. And as most of you know, that's always the one I pick for these instructional videos. Now, this is I went into building construction and I picked a small train station. And notice I can't just plop it down anywhere. I can put it one of two places. I can either put it in the green area of a city, which means it's going to be a city station, or I can put it out here at a farm or a mine or something like that, a rural station. But I can put it there, not actually the opposite. I can't put it in. I have to put it outside to give the farm the room it needs to do its thing. I have to put it outside, but I have to have, see that green link? That's the catchment area. It has to be within the catchment area of that. I couldn't build it out there in the middle of nowhere and say it's going to use that one. It has to be close enough. So it's basically implying there's ground transportation that's going to bring stuff over here to your platform for your train system. All right, so there we go. Now, let's go up here to Grand Rapids, and I'm going to put in a different kind of station. There are two types of stations now. There are stations, regular stations, which is how the game started, and then they added these stations with auto signaling or signaling control. And you'll notice the huge difference. This is the exact same thing down at the guts of it. Now, this happens to be a two-track version, but notice out here you've got this little house and you've got these tracks and switches out here, and that's what those are. If you really don't know train nomenclature, this is a track. This is a switch where you have pieces of track connected together with different ways the trains could go, and we'll get into signals here in a minute. So let's connect. So to lay any track in this game, I have to be connected to something. I have to be based off of something. I have to drag it out from that. Left click over here, drag it out. That is laying track. If I get rid of that, go back into the build mode and then just try to drag, I can't left click and drag stuff in the middle of nowhere. It has to be based off of an existing platform or connected to in some way to existing track. You also really have to start with your hometown. So in order for us to really get this going, we have to put a station in our hometown of Toledo. So there we go. We got a small station there, and we're going to run a line. So I left click, I drag it out. Now notice this is, I think the track laying in this is just lovely because I can go here, put a click and say, okay, anchor it there, and go here 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 and whatever. I can do whatever I want to do, plan out the line, and then I can right click and look at it and get back here and say, oh, do I like that? Well, no, of course I don't like that. That's pathetic. So I can trash it and start over. And I can go out here and left click. And here's another little handy little thing you can do. Now, and keep in mind, everything I'd say is going to be PC. If you're on a console, many of you are, if you're on a console playing this game, you can do all these things. You just have to figure out, what's the combination of keys you need to hit or whatever to do the same thing. So if I right click right now, it looks like my track went away, but it actually didn't. Notice that little green thing's there still? So I can go up to my endpoint and just click near it, and notice my track just kind of magically came back. So now I'm connecting those two. And I just screwed it up and connected it. Got the nice click, the little cone. I left clicked and it's done. But it's not done until I buy it. So if I elect that, and I do, that's a nice straight piece of track. And I accept it. I buy it. Then I can click, right click, scroll up and scroll back down so I can quickly move over here, right click next to that, and now what I'm going to do here is build what I call a point-to-point connection like this, going so it literally can only go to this one piece of track, and right click that. Now I've built double track going between this auto signal station and this little single station here. Now let's talk about first basics of simple signals and blocks. First of all, what's a block? A block is one section of track between signals. And when a train runs, the engineer driving the train looks ahead one block and says, can I go? Or the signals tell him the next block is clean, it's clear, there are no trains in there, you can go. Or, nope, there's still a train in there, you have to wait. So you have to have the signals and switches and all that to make all this work. So we can put in signals, it's super easy. I hit the building, construction, I hit signals, I go down here to my track, and then I'm going to hold down control, and notice what happens when I hit control and hover it over the track. See how it's putting in signals all the way up through there? That's beautiful, and they're automatically spaced. The distance, a distance where an entire train could fit in there, which is how you want your blocks, and it automatically goes to, in the direction it's going, it goes to the nearest point to the next signal and starts there and works its way back. So if I put that in, that will give me a set of signals. Now if I add the shift key, I've now made that one-way track. See the red that pops up there? Now it's one-way track saying I can only go down screen on as we're looking at it, or on the right as we're looking at it. Or no, actually, the right if you're going down screen. So it can only go down screen. So if I left click, now it actually placed track all the way up through there, because that's all one section of track that it went from one intersection to the next intersection. We've set it one way. Now to go the other way, we can control. See how it made it? It's laying them out, and notice how it's down here at the far end. Now I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to hit the shift key and rotate my mouse, and notice how it flipped back up, and there's not one down here. Flip it back, because you don't want one that close coming out. But what it did here is go back to the other end and work its way back. And if I left click, now I've set my signals to go in both directions. I've set one-way track, driving on the right-hand side, all the way up and down. Okay, so there's the basic signals. Notice a train would come in here, do its thing, come out, go on the other side. Now, over here, I didn't build an X, or I didn't do any kind of junction. That's because the junction is built into the station. The auto signal automatically has the junctions built for you. Now let's do a different station just to show a different junction. Let's say we had a regular train station here. Now, every city can have 2 stations. They can only have 2 stations. And hint, hint, key strategy for you to take going down the road is dominate cities by putting 2 stations in as many cities as you can, as quickly as you can, so that your AI competitor cannot move in there. Okay, now if I click here and build a piece of track, and let's say I just wanted to hook it into this main line. This will show you the first type of a way to merge track. I'm dragging my track out and I say, okay, well, right up here, I want to just merge. Now, I can merge with the close one. I can merge with the far one. I'm going to merge with the far one. That, to me, is easier. I'm going to click, and I'm going to accept that. Now, notice that little cone right there. That's because I'm still in track construction. If I go out of track construction, it goes away. Back in track construction, that little cone, what I can do is click, is hover over that till I click on that little cone, left click, start my line. I can do my right click if I want to, go over here and click again, and see this, I can come back and build my track into this. So now I've built track that where you're coming down off this main line, and you could go to either station off that main line. Now here, this one kind of automatically worked because there's only 1 point, so we actually get a junction that we built almost by default. Here, what we want to do is put a little X in front of the crossing the 2 tracks like that, and now we've created a junction in front of this one, a simplified version of all the junctioning that you see up here. The junction is more complex for the auto signals. Now, if we go back to this one, now let's set our signals for it. We'll go signals. Now what we want to do here, I'm holding Control Shift. I'm going to just see how it's already set a direction. That's because of all the other work that's been done. There's kind of automatically the direction is already predisposed for us. But now if I just move my cursor over it, it'll automatically snap in and put it right where it belongs. I'm going to click it. Then I'm going to just go over to the other one. It'll automatically say, I can go up all the way to the end. There we go. And now I've connected this one in with signals. Now, this brings up a point. The one thing you want to do when you build a merge is you want to get in the habit, and this is a habit I don't always follow, and sometimes I rue it. You want to make sure that the distance, wherever you merge, that you don't have any short blocks. You don't want any blocks that are too short for an entire train to fit in. So like going this way, this right here, it's conceivable we could get a train, and that's close, but we could get a train that's right here and hanging back here. And if it's hanging back here, it's going to block trains from going that way. And if you have enough traffic, you could actually create yourself gridlock by having trains that can't go this way to that one because there's a train coming out this way that can't move ahead. So to avoid that, what we want to do is hold down the control key, still in signal mode, go over to that signal right there, see how it became a bulldozer, and delete it. And now I've got a nice long block, so you won't come out of here until you can get all the way up here, and that way this line coming down this way stays free. So whenever you merge, make sure that you give yourself enough space on the merges. Like, for example, if there happened to be one right there, we would probably kill that, although in this case it probably wouldn't. We would kill that one too, because we wouldn't want traffic down here tying up stuff that happens out here. So get in the habit of deleting any signals that make it too short a block. Okay, so we've got blocks, we've got signals, we've got junctions. I'm going to show you some more types of junctions. Let's say that you've moved along and you've expanded, you've got a lot of stuff going on and you want to expand the station. Well, you do that by clicking on the station, hitting expand, and go. Now it goes from 1 track to 2. I could do it again and go from 2 tracks to 4, but I want to show you a couple of things. First of all, how to delete the track. Let's say you want to delete. Now notice if I hit the bulldozer and go in here and hover over a track, see all that red? That's what it's going to delete. What it'll do is delete between 2 sections of track, but really between junctions. And the platform is considered a junction in this. So I could delete that whole thing if I wanted to, or I could delete part of the track. See, if I hover again, it's going to take out all that track. But say I liked all that right there, I could hold down the Shift key and left click and put that marker in there. Then I can go over here and say, okay, just delete that little piece of track, right? So I'm going to go ahead and delete it all just because, all right, so I deleted this track right here, this little piece, and I've expanded from 1 to 2 stations. Now I need to be able to get those 2 stations to both work, right? So what I'm going to do is rebuild my track now and go in here and set up a junction like so, and rebuild my junction like that. So now I've reestablished that junction, but I'm also going to make sure I do my best practice and look. And sure enough, because of the way I've done it now, I've got a block here that's too short. I don't want that. I don't want one coming straight out like that, so I'm going to delete that one. And I am going to look and say, it looks like now it's awful long. I'm in signal mode, Control Shift, touch that, and see it automatically put one in there for me that's safely far enough away. So now I've got, now I can do the same thing down here, but I don't want to do it yet. Now why is that? Because you want to lay your track, set your junctions, then set your signals. And down here we don't have a junction yet. We have track coming in and track going out, but they have no way to kind of talk to each other. So a train coming down this way would have to come into track 2, and it would need to get out on track 1 to go back out, but it doesn't have a way to get there. So we would go into track and build the junction like this and like that, put in our little X. Then we would go, okay, now I can set my signals for my new pieces of track like so. There we go. Now what we're seeing is actually this piece of track has gotten a little short, so I would probably recommend deleting that and having trains only go over here if they really truly were free to go in to one of the platforms, but they don't want them backing up here and then keeping trains from being able to come out of there. Lay your track, set your junctions, set your signals, and then the last step would be put in your supply towers. Now supply towers, I click supply tower. We don't have any on our system. You don't need a billion of them. You want to try to figure out where's the right place to put them to get the most bang for the buck without making things too congested and slowing things down. And I think you'll find after you've played the game a while, eyeballing it is the best way to decide how many to do. I've done studies that indicate you should have them about every 140 miles, but it varies depending upon the trains you're running. There are trains later in the game that are fuel hogs, like the Columbia, I think it is, or the Old Mod. Old Mod is a fuel hog. You'll need more supply stations. You can do research to give your trains further distances that they can travel between supplies. But the bottom line is you want to cover all your bases. So in this case, I would probably put one right in the middle, or I'd say, you know what? I know I'm down the road. I'm going to put in a connection to that lumber. It's going to go to both cities. So I would probably put one here and put one here, and that way all these trains could use those, and anything I set up here could come into the system, and no matter which way it goes, it's going to be able to hit a supply tower. Okay, so that's so what you want to do again. I'm keep repeating this because this is so important, and I keep screwing. As much as I've played this game, I keep screwing this up. You want to have your platform set, figure out how you're going to do your connection with your track, lay your track. Make sure you've got your junctions set on both ends or all the applicable ends. Set your signals, do your supply towers. Get in that habit and you will always be good. All right, so now we've got that. We've got track, we don't have any trains running. Why don't we just throw some trains in here and let's talk about how you set up rail lines. Okay, I hit, let me sorry, can't remember how to get out of that. Okay, I hit new train, right? And I do set up rail line, this one. So then notice the green. This is showing me all my stations that I have available for me. Now, let's say we want to run a beer meat line between Toledo and Grand Rapids, and this is outside the scope of this video, but we do want to run a beer line between Toledo and Grand Rapids. So let's go down here and pick this station. Now we've got to be careful which one we pick. We're going to take Toledo 1, and we're going to say, okay, well, where do we want it to go? We want it to go here. Now, we've got Toledo 1 and Grand Rapids as our two stations. It'll automatically run back and forth between the two. So I don't have to put Toledo in again to get it to go back. It's just going to automatically, that's a line between Toledo and Grand Rapids. And you can go down here and see, we can see the gold, it's showing us where that line is, and it's showing us the direction it's going to go. See? Because we've defined driving on the right, it's going to drive on the right going up, and it's going to come from Grand Rapids this way, going back. Now, there are several things we can do in here. We can say, okay, automatic means just pick up whatever you've got, whatever can be hauled, and take it. And it's looking at its destination and saying, what do they need? And what do I have, of course? And in an automatic line coming out of a city, its preference will be freight. It will pick up freight that is needed. So Toledo produces meat. If there's meat in Toledo, and again, this is a different video, but if there's meat in Toledo, it'll pick that up and go to Grand Rapids. When it comes back, it'll pick up beer in Grand Rapids and bring it back to Toledo if they need beer. And it'll keep going like that forever. And if it doesn't need enough, a full train of meat on automatic, it will then grab passengers and mail, fill up as much as it can, and take off. So the next one we can do is passengers and mail, and we can just tell the train, hey, we just want you to carry passengers and mail, and there are definite reasons for that. Different video. Or just freight. And I tend to just, or you can do manual, which I never use, but you could do manual and tell it to, I want you to pick up 2 box cars of passengers, 1 mail, 2 meat, and 1 leather shoes, and go to Grand Rapids or whatever. You could set up where you want. I never do that. Never. I've played a lot of Railway Empire and never used it. But you could. So we're going to do automatic beer meat, and we're going to hit the check mark saying, yes, we like the line. Now we're going to add a locomotive. And we have a big old list of locomotives that we could run in 1830. I'm in sandbox mode, so all the research has been done. You'll typically start out, like if you started in 1830 in a typical one, you would just have the grasshopper, this little slow, pitiful little thing, a little go-kart on tracks. And then you research, and again, different topic, and you move ahead. So we're just going, it doesn't matter. We'll run to Philadelphia. It's a nice train. So we're going to buy that Philadelphia, and again, different train. So we're just, or different video. So I'm just going to get out of that and say, okay, go. So now we've got the train set there, and I'm going to let this thing run, and notice how it's filling up with meat, and it'll take off. Now, if I want a second train on that line, I can just hit clone that train, have that one selected, clone it, copy. Now I've got another train. Notice how it took some meat, some passengers, some mail. And let's do a third train. And let's do a fourth train. How many trains could we do on that line? Well, we could do the number of blocks on that line minus 1 would be the absolute maximum that you would want, that you could possibly run, because there would always be 1 block free for a train to move into, and the trains could just slowly move forward. Don't ever do that. Here's some basic guidelines on how many trains you want to run. You want your utilization of your platforms, and notice here I didn't specify which platform, and notice how our utilization's over 100% on track 1. And it's 0 on track 2. Well, why is that? Because down here, this is not an auto signal, and they go to the shortest route. It's decided the shortest route is track 1, so it's running, all the trains are going to track 1. But if we go up here to the auto signal, look at the utilization here, 28%, 28%. Much better, isn't it? Why is that? Because it's dividing the trains between the two tracks evenly, and you can run way more trains like that. Now, how do we fix that? Well, one would be use auto signal stations. That would be a great fix. If you didn't use auto signal stations, the other thing we can do is specify, and this is another video too, but I'll do quickly. Let's say we took, we had a breakdown. Good. All right. The other thing we can do with our stations is put maintenance buildings on them at a cost. And if you put in a maintenance building, and I'm going to put it in all of our city stations here. If you put in maintenance buildings, what will happen is the trains will automatically, if they need it, they will get maintenance. In fact, this guy here is probably, see, he's being serviced because we put service in there. He'll be serviced as he needs it at any station he stops at that has maintenance on it. And that way you can keep your trains running. And even that one that just got serviced, still they can break down a little bit, random breakdown, but they will repair themselves and move on. So we can see all our stuff. But anyway, I was saying, how do we even out the distribution here quickly? What we do, and we'll find the next train coming down there. We're going to take this train right here as an example. We're going to go to the setup rail line, which actually lets us modify it. And we're going to say in Toledo, we're going to edit the station and say we want you to use track 2. So we'll accept that. And now if we watch it, he should go into this track right here. And notice our utilization now. It's 86 and 28. Because now we've got one of the trains coming into this other station. So what you can do, we won't get into that. I've got a whole video on station platform usage for how to optimize these things and how to set them up and how to set up waiting queues, your track coming in and all that. And I would recommend that station platform usage video to go into those details. Let's lay some more track. Let's say we've got a meat industry, they want cattle. Let's run a line here. And I want to show you, first of all, we could run it to a separate line, right? We could expand the station and run a dedicated line to it, or we could hook it into our trunk line, our main line. And it's up to you how you want to design it. I tend to run dedicated lines a lot, but let us say you wanted to run it directly in like so. I would do my merge to the outside. I get my little cone. I click on it, come back here and anchor this, move up here, and I'll do my little point-to-point connection here. Okay, all right, now let's do our process. We laid our track. We want to make sure our junctions, we have a junction here. It was already set. We built one here by default because we're going into a single platform. So we've got our junctions. Then we set our signals. Now how easy was that? Then we think about supply towers. It's going to hit a supply tower right there, and that's probably enough. So when these come down, or now this is a trade-off. We could say, okay, it could get supplies there, but there's a lot of traffic going here, so why don't we give it supplies out here as well, so that it won't always be using that one. Now that costs you money. You have to trade that off, money versus time versus efficiency versus blah, 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 right? Okay, so now we've set up a line there, so we can set up a line from here to Toledo, right? And if you want to, you could call it a freight-only line if that helps you keep track. I typically don't just because I'm lazy. But I should, really. I should call it a freight-only line. But it's going to be freight-only because when else is it going to haul, right? It doesn't haul passengers out here to the cattle ranch. So we could say here, okay, you can see it can only go from track 1, right? And we're going to make it run full. So the minimum amount that you're going to carry, you're only going to go when you can take a full load. So if I hit the minus, it scrolls around. Watch if I hit plus. It goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then back to 0. So if it's at 0 and I hit minus, it automatically goes to the 8. You could also set a maximum. That's down the road. We'll worry about that stuff later. So I'm going to set a line, freight only, running from Young Breeding to Toledo 1. And one other thing I wanted to do. I want to go back to that. In Toledo, now you want to look at your platforms and think about, do I need to expand to another platform? Or, I've got one that's not that busy. I'll just run it in there, and we'll put a couple of trains on that. There's one, and I'm going to copy it to run another one. And now we should see our utilization down here this utilization here will go up as soon as we start running that. See how it jumped up to 57%. And what we would probably do if we were going to have the same 2-track thing, we probably would run the freight into one of the tracks and the passenger and the mail into the other one. We wouldn't have the passenger and mail split. But it doesn't matter, however you want to do it. Because if we ran similarly up here, it would just split automatically, divided up. So the auto signals are great. They keep it simple. There are reasons for using this that are kind of beyond the scope of this video. Look right here. Goof, goof, goof. One of my favorites. Here's a new merge we created, a new junction, and look what I've got right there. Look at that signal. It is too close. You could have a train. If this was busier, we could have a train come down here, stop right here waiting, and it could gum up the works. Now, on the right-hand side, it's not so bad again. Coming this way is where it's worse. But just the same, best practice would be go to signals and delete that signal right there, because we don't want trains, getting halfway through. We want them to go all the way through into a full block. Now, I kind of let myself get distracted and wandered off into talking about the utilization for the tracks and forgot to finish off the thought that I wanted to show you is, another type of junction you can build. What if you have a 4-platform? We upgrade this to a large station, but it's not an auto signal, and I want to use all 4 of these platforms and have them available. Well, what I would do then is go in and delete. I would delete out. Oh, and this is a good point. See this one? How it hear that ding because there's a train about to use that. If I hit it again and delete it, just hit it twice in succession, what it does is it will send that train back to its state of origin at where it started, and you can go ahead and do your delete. Now you do lose the goods that it was carrying, but sometimes you just want to make that change, and these trains coming in here will keep you from doing deletes. If you just delete, you get the ding, you delete again, the train will go back and reset, and you can make your changes without being interfered with by the flow of traffic from your trains, which can be very useful. Now, imagine, we just showed earlier how you could go from a 1-platform to a 2-platform and hook it up with this kind of a connection. So now, what if we were going from 2 to 4? We would want to, here's the way I like to do it. I would come out of the middle track like that, build my junction or connect it into my line, however it has to be connected, and by that, and then go up here and do that again to set up my other merge. And one other thing I didn't mention, when you're coming into a merge like that, now watch this. If I come up here and just connect to that, now that one happened to work. A lot of times, depending upon the angle you're coming in or whatever, you can't just walk up there and grab that. You have to click and anchor your line to an existing track and then go up there and click on your cone. So just, if you're getting weird behavior where you're trying to do some merge and it just, every time you come up to click the cone, the track just seems to go off in wild directions. Just go in first and anchor to some point along the way and then do that, and you should have no problems. So anyway, here we've got our double track. Now what we want to do in order to make it all 4 lanes, we're just going to simply take the outside 2 tracks, tracks 1 and 4, and merge them with the ones right next to them, right? And then we'll just put another little diamond right in front of that configuration, like this. And now I've got a setup where any train coming in here could go to any of these stations. Now, if I had this, if I'm actually playing this, if this was a real setup, I wouldn't have these so short. I wouldn't have this merge so close to both of these stations, because you're going to have queuing issues, and you can see how even in this little video here we've had to delete some signals because our blocks are too short. This is just too crowded. I would probably delete all this and build my thing up here, and if I'm still going into a trunk line, I would go up here and merge rather than so close to this station, or vice versa. I would leave this one and delete this part and merge it further up, but that's just a best practice. Give yourself some space to work with. But here you can see the line coming down, and this X allows this track to go over to these two, and the first X allows this track to go over to these two, and then when you get over here to go to these two, you of course have the X here, or the connection here, which allows you to go to any of them. So now you can go to any of those, and if we left it like this, we would probably do signaling like this, and like this, and like that, and that, and then we'd look at and say, are any of them too short? No, actually they look pretty good. I think we're okay. So that would work, and that would allow us to use those, and that's how you would expand from a 2-platform to a 4-platform regular station that didn't have signaling control. And of course, on the other hand, this is the beauty of these ones with auto signaling. Watch all the work I have to do to expand it. I'm going to hit expand the station, and ta-da, it built everything for me. All the junctions and everything are built, and now I have this track here that I can use any way I see fit. Now I realize that there's one other type of junction that you might want to make, and that's where lines cross each other. So I wanted to give you my thoughts on that and show you how to do that, because you will have situations where you want to run this wheat all the way down here to Indianapolis, and you don't want to go around, or there's just no good path to go. You just got to cross a line. So let's do that. In fact, shoot, let's just let's just run wheat down to Indianapolis. So we've got let's put a station in Indianapolis, and we'll put a station up here at the wheat. Remember, it's got to be outside. Whoops. It's got to be outside this. I don't know if I mentioned, I usually put the station part of these rules closest to the farm or mine, so that I have room to expand if I choose to add more lines later, more platforms. But watch what happens. We're going to go here, and we're going to go all the way down here. Okay. All right, so it by default gave us this big old expensive bridge, $671,000 worth of bridge. See, the bridge goes way, way back here. We don't want that. So first of all, let's talk about building bridges. Now, if you're going to cross a line like this, I would say the best practice is to use a bridge. We'll get into the flat crossings here in a minute, but the best practice is to use a bridge. Now, the way to clean this up is to click on this right here and put an anchor point closer to the actual track. See how all that flattened out? Our cost went down a little bit. Now if we put an anchor point on that side, see now our cost has gone way down. Okay, so now we've got a little bridge here, but we've got flat track everywhere else. So our cost is way, way down. Now we can take these anchor points and move them. See, if I spread it out a little bit, see how I can lower the grade? Now the cost changes, as I do that, and I'm spending a little more money if I kind of build a longer, flatter bridge. But that's pretty nice, and a 5-degree grade is not bad. And just a quick word on grades: stay away from them as much as you can, but there are times when you just have to deal with them. I mean, if you play the gold rush scenario and you're around Shasta trying to get over to Carson City, unless you're going to build some expensive tunnels, you're going to have some grade. Just suck it up. But here we've got a bridge. Now, what can we do as far as building the bridge? If I click right in the middle of it, see how we've got this steep grade. I can hover over it, hold down the shift key, and use my mouse to drive it down. See, I've converted it into a tunnel now. Or I can move my middle mouse wheel the other way and pick it up and turn it into a bridge. So this is how, and I can do the same thing here. I can bury this line, or I can bring this line up. And that's a way, by the way, if you're out in more difficult terrain, this is all easy terrain, but you can hover over this and use your mouse wheel to drive to move your track down, see, and cut out into the earth, or move your track up. That's one of the things you can do. That's kind of advanced track laying. We won't get into that so much, but I did want to show you the basics of building this bridge. See, it's like so. We can build it so it's like a ridiculous amount of slope. You want the closest thing you can get and still get it in there. And keep in mind, and I can do. I think it's. How do I get rid of that? Yeah, if I do shift and left click on that, I can get rid of that little anchor point altogether. And again, keep in mind, just remember to move these around till you get what you like. So that's a bridge. Now, say you didn't want a bridge. Say you really, truly want, well, first of all, we did tunnels too, by the way. I said, you can go like that. You can build a tunnel, and we might want to bury this a little and flatten it out a little bit. Tunnels are, to me, last resort. There's places where they're absolutely the right thing to do, but tunnels, you will find, are more expensive than bridges, and they're kind of satisfying to build them, but they are much more expensive, and they're not great. They're not great. Now, let's say you really did want a flat connection. So you didn't want to spend $151,000, and you really needed that line, and you wanted a flat connection. So what you could do here, let's see, I'm going to take that away, and I'm just going to anchor this. See how I anchored it to the track? I just took, again, take this away. It's a bridge. I'm going to left click and put that anchor point in there. Now I'm just going to move it a little side to side till it sort of locks in on one of the tracks. And it automatically kind of buried it for me a little bit. And the key is you've got to have anchor points on both sides to work with. See? You can kind of swing it around and make it fit where you want it to go. So that will give you one side of a flat connection, and that's actually a flat connection. Trains will go through here, and they'll go through here, and they'll pass each other, and it's just fine. Now, to double track, it's where it gets a little bit more difficult. This is the part that they didn't quite conquer 100%, I would say. So I'm going to click here and anchor and start my line off of Perry Farm. And I'm going to go over here, and let's just say, here, let's just run it all the way over. We're going to run it all the way over here to Indianapolis, and it's going to connect up to, oops, sorry, not driving very well. It's going to hook in here. Now look at what a weird ass, look at what a weird thing is. I mean, it's just totally screwed up, right? Well, that's because it's crossing over this, and it just really doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know how to handle it. So what I'm going to do is come over here and anchor it to the right-hand side of that track. Do the same thing here and anchor it to the right-hand side of that track. Now you'll notice that's straightened up on either side, away from our crossing. Now, if we want to make the crossing work, what we have to do is click in the middle of this and then just move it just a tiny little bit until it flattens out. And now that will give us a flat crossing across this other line. Now, best practice, of course, we would not do a flat crossing across a main city-to-city trunk line, but this could be two lines out in the country going in opposite directions or perpendicular directions that, low traffic, and this could be just fine. Notice the thing, what you cannot do is get this to kiss that and make a true double track connection. That's the part they just didn't quite conquer. You can get this, which isn't bad. I'm going to accept it so you can see it. But you do have a gap in there. You absolutely have a gap in there. But you can build a flat connection if you want it. Again, I would build a bridge or a tunnel. Bridge would be the first choice because then you avoid the traffic jams that come from this. And then you want to make sure, if you do this, of course, we've now set up a merge, so we want to go in and look, make sure we've got our junctions, we do, and then set our signals. So like right here, I would do Control-Shift and click that to say, okay, stop right up at that junction. And I would do the same thing here, and I would do the same thing right there, right? And then I would set signals once I've got that direction going like that, and I would definitely kill that signal, and I'd probably kill that signal and move it up there. So now all the trains are going to come right up to this thing here and make a decision. Am I clear to go through this? And if I go through this, can I get all the way off it? Can I get all the way out of the way so I'm not gumming things up? And if we built that like that, and we'll just quickly run a line here. Let's run a line here. We'll run full trains from the farm over here to Indianapolis, and we'll just say go, and I'm going to run 2, 3, 4 in the hopes that we just get some activity going here. And now you can see how these trains are running just fine. Nothing's even slowing them down. Now here comes a train. What's going to happen here? See, that one had to slow down for that one to get past. But you'll notice that they're all working just fine. They're moving just fine. They're able to cross each other. Everything works just beautifully. So that's how you would cross lines and how you would how you build bridges and tunnels. And I think right there we can wrap up. We've covered stations and platforms and assigning platform usage, and we've got the different junctions into the stations. We've talked about auto signaling stations. By the way, warehouses are identical. They have both this type, and the junctions work exactly the same. Warehouses are a different topic. In fact, I have a whole series on warehouses that you can go to that I'll put a link in here too. And you can go read all about, so to speak, warehouses like crazy. But now we've got this thing going. And what I didn't do, I checked my junctions, I did my signals, but I don't want to end on an error. So we want supply towers. We'll put one on this side and one on this side. And notice I always put my supply towers over existing signals, because the supply tower also defines a block, and I wouldn't want to put one here and have half blocks, or like if I'm looking at this section right here, where am I going to put a supply tower? I'd put it here, here, or here, right on top of a set of signals, rather than putting it off the signals, where I've now created yet another block, which is actually a short block. It's too short. So it's best to just put them right on top of existing signals. All right, so that's it. Now I'm going to stop. I keep adding stuff to this. We've covered stations, platforms, laying tracks, setting up junctions, setting signals, putting in supply towers and maintenance sheds, even done the crossing. We've covered bridges and tunnels. Hopefully, all of that should help you get off to a really great start playing this great game.
I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player. I hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe, and join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.